Howdy, people. We're gonna do it. We're gonna talk about trans people. Here we go. I don't believe that trans women are women. I also don't believe that trans women are men. I don't believe trans men are men. I also don't believe that trans men are women. So let me tell you how I got here. A while ago, I was reading an article that was talking about how there was this trans man teacher at an elementary school. And this trans teacher was pregnant. Trans man teacher was pregnant. And the school sent home a memo to parents talking about saying we think it would be great if you would, broach this topic with your kids from the perspective of like, hey, isn't it so cool that men can have babies? And I remember thinking, what? I was like, I can't do it. I'm stuck. I was like, I like knew I had some trans friends at school when I went to college. And I was reading this thing and I was like, men can't have babies. No, 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 no. I was like, no, fuck it. I'm done. I found my line. I can't do it. It's too, it's like, I don't know. I was like, um, so, so that's where I was. I had this feeling, I had this thought, and I was like, you know, um, so, so if you take this idea, if I validate this feeling, it's all arbitrary, right? First of all, like we we say, there's I think there's like three paradigms, right? There's sort of there's the paradigm of there are men and there are women, and underneath men and women there are cis men and cis women, or cis men and trans men, and then underneath women there are cis women and trans women, and that's sort of the trans paradigm, right? That's what activists have pushed. That's what the allies have pushed. That's what they believe, and then the conservatives, not the conservatives, like the super radical right people. I they're not. I wouldn't call you guys conservative. You guys are pushing a sort of motley mix of a different kind of thing that is in a lot of ways extremely radical. So I wouldn't call it conservative. But the far right Republicans and maybe the Republican Party as a whole are basically pushing this idea that there are no trans people and there are only men and women. And I think where most people are really at is that there are men and there are women and there are trans people. I think that's where people are at. So I don't want to put that on you, but I'll tell you. So I was knee jerking against the trans reality when I had this moment of like, I can't go. I'm not going to go here with you. I just was like, nope, I'm drawing my line. I don't believe men can have babies. Um, so, if you take that to its fullest extent, if men can't have babies, then on some level, uh, I believe that your gender, on some level, your gender is tied to the equipment you're born with. So there's some relationship there. On the other hand, I also believe that gender is fluid. Because basically I watched a while back Jon Stewart on his old show before he got back to the Daily Show. He made this video on the problem with Jon Stewart about trans people, and he made the point, like, even on a street level type of, like, even in just normal existence, it's like you'll have people be like, oh, that's a man right there, or that's a, ooh, what a woman, ooh. You know what I mean? So, like, you get comments like that, and what you realize is, like, even for like, even in the normal non-trans necessarily, I would say that, like, even in a regular world, pre-trans paradigm, you have this element of people ascribing other people different levels of, like, manliness or womanliness. And so on some level, like, I think that gender is fluid. So there's this level of, like, gender is tied to your equipment on some level, but it's also can be different things. So that's interesting to me. So um, the way that I have settled this for myself is the way that I think Democrats can find effectiveness in talking about trans people and making this, like, normal for people is basically saying, like, my definition of a woman is, this is my definition that I've had to come up with, because I don't I don't really believe that trans people don't exist, but I also don't believe a trans woman is a woman, right? So my definition of a woman is someone who's born with lady parts, uh, who doesn't think she's not a woman. So, like, if you're born with lady stuff and you don't think you're not a woman, then you're a woman or you're a girl. Like, you don't have to actively think you're a girl to be a girl, you're just a girl. Same with being a man. If you're born with man parts, you're a man, you're a boy. And if you start having thoughts about, well, maybe something doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel real to me, this feels different, then maybe you're something else. And, like, I want you to be able to explore that. I don't really care. I don't believe in telling you, what you have to be. If you think you want to be something different, go go go. I don't know, man. That's on you. You do a thing. You go see. Whatever, like, I think that I think that there's space in our culture for that. I'm okay with that. I think that you should be. I think that we have room for a live and let live culture. But I think that people also want some level of stability in their understanding of what things are, and some level of connectivity to where we've come from, right? Because, like, before 10 or 15 years ago, trans people was not, like, a thing. It was a thing, but it wasn't a thing only for, people specifically thinking about this in the LGBTQ community, in academic spaces maybe, but just, like, mostly among those small circles. And now it's a much broader thing, partly because of what you guys have done. And that's, like, you guys are supposed to really push the bill. That's your whole thing. You're trying to build new social, cultural reality, and I think that that's okay. You know what I mean? It's like gay people used to be the demon baby of society, and now it's like most people are like, yeah, I don't, whatever. And it used to be that, like, it even with slavery, it's like slavery's okay. Yeah, some people just aren't people. Whoa. And now that's, like, horrifying to us, right? So, like, social reality changes, and that's okay. And it pushes, and it grows, and it changes. And, like, I think that we should leave space for that. But I also think that we need to respect that, like, beyond 10 or 15 years ago, it's like if you were born with a certain kind of equipment, you were something, and that was it. So I don't like you folks who believe that. I don't want to scare you away because, in some level, that's inside of me even, and I'm pretty. I have like I people should be able to be the way that people want to be, to a certain I think that that's fair. That's freedom, right? And I believe in that, and I think that a lot of people do. Um, So yeah, and the definition of a man, it's the same thing in reverse. A man is someone who's born with man parts who doesn't think he's not a man. You don't have to have affirmative belief that you're a man to be a man. You have the stuff, that's what you are. And if you know, maybe something happens where you're thinking something different and then, I don't know. That's you. You go. You go. You can leave the man box to become the beautiful. There's a whole swirling vortex of universe out there, and you guys are gonna try and capture some of it and define yourselves or whatever, and that's fine. It's not my business, but it's cool. Like, go do it. Sure, fine. So I think that if we can spread some of this around, as liberals and Democrats, and it's not like you have to, like the way, like if you were going to go on Fox News and do a segment on something like this, I don't know, you could let it come at you. It's like, what about the trans issue? What about what this thing about men becoming women or whatever? It's like you can bring it up then, but maybe like I'm talking about. I mentioned in the video leading into this, like, this stuff needs to be affirmative. You need to be taking up space with it. It can't be just like, you have to stop hiding. Like, I think that, like, here's something I think is true about uh, all of us as Americans. Okay? I think most people don't hate trans people. And I also think, but I also think, and I also think that a lot of people don't believe that trans women are women. So how do you splice that difference, but also make room for trans people? And I think it's something along the lines of what I'm doing. It's like you create a level of stability where it's like gender is not something you think about. You're born a certain way, you are a certain way. And if from within yourself something emerges that tells you you're different, you can go explore that. You figure it out. There are people who know all sorts of things about this stuff, but I don't think it should necessarily be like I think what people are rejecting is like the encouragement of people exploring gender as a kid. And I don't really have an opinion on that. I just think that, like, from a political perspective, like, it's quite destructive for Democrats. And I think that you just have to address that. And I think that there's a way to do it in a way that allows for trans people to exist. And I think that you should do that because I think backing off of like any sort of support for trans people is also like a nuclear bomb for the Democrat Party, and just something stupid that you guys don't want to do, and you shouldn't do it. I don't think it'd be like I I think it's like evil on some way in some way because I don't think trans people are, here's the thing, it's like I think trans people are part of the culture now and they're not going anywhere, and they've always been part of the culture in some way, which all the trans academics will, all the gender studies people will tell you all about. uh, so you know so you can either hang them out to dry or you can stand up for them in a way that's going to actually be effective. And I'll tell you a story. The thing about this stuff is that it actually works. I have a friend who's super I don't know, he wouldn't call himself a Republican and he wouldn't call himself a MAGA, but he sort of says all the same things that a Republican or a MAGA would say. So I don't know, out of respect for him, I don't want to necessarily say he's one or the other, but he sort of falls into that line of thinking. And I was at his house and I was talking to one of his friends, and his friend was like, we were going back and forth about politics, and he was basically, we were talking about trans people, and he goes, "What is a woman?" And he sort of said it with like a sneer and like a grin, like, I got you. And I was just like, I sort of went through everything. I didn't go through everything, but I gave him the definition that I gave here. I said, my definition of a woman, and which I've had to come up with all on my own because I'm sick of this whole thing is like eating everything, and it's just like it's so dumb. And he goes, I don't think it's dumb. Who thinks it's dumb? I'm not. And I was like, it's dumb. It's dumb. And he went silent. So I said, my definition of a woman is someone who is born with like the equipment of a woman in the normal way we used to categorize women, and which I think we should continue to do, but who doesn't think she's not a woman. And he kind of like was like, he's like taken aback. He's like, and then he leans away. He's like, yeah, but you're wrong. And I was like, you could say that. And I walked away. And then I went on to have a very fun board game with my friends and everybody else who was there, and he sort of like stomped off to bed. So this take works. Something to think about, because the right wing has made this a cultural football, and I don't like the idea of even having to have a take on a stance on trans people, because it turns trans people into an object, and trans people are just people, and I understand that, but the right wing has made trans people as a thing a cultural football, and they are kicking it around, punt, like, it's just, man, that football is taking a beating. And I say, you, as a Democrat and a liberal and a decent type of folk who doesn't quite like the punting of that football and the way it's been punted, you gotta take that football away. You say, I'm gonna play with this ball then, and I'm gonna put it in the right spot. So, sorry, trans people, I gotta have a position on you, but I think that if we get more effective at talking about this, we can win, and we can win with people getting into office who are a lot more sympathetic to you guys than this other crowd. So if you give space to some of us moderates to speak a little bit. I'm not saying activists don't be activists. I think your whole job is to push things forward, and you should. But if you ease up on some of us moderates and give us some latitude to go out and speak to people who aren't necessarily who aren't on board, but in a way that's for them, we can get them on board enough to be in a little bit more of a secure position politically. So just something to think about. See ya.